Hi everyone, my name is Shai Reshef and I'm the president of University of the People, the first non-profit, tuition-free, accredited online university that opens the gates of higher education to every student who do not have the chance to do it otherwise. Today we serve 65,000 students from 200 countries and growing. And today it is my great pleasure and honor to have with me Sir Tim, um, previously from the University of Edinburgh, and also a member of our President Council. So welcome, Tim.
Thank you very much, Shai.
It's great to have you with us, and I would like to start by asking you if you're willing to share with us your extensive career and what brought you to where you are today.
Okay, I mean, I'll start right at the beginning because what brought me to where I am today is my parents. My father was an economic migrant from Ireland. He left school at about 12. My mother was a refugee in the aftermath of the Second World War, going from Silesia and skipping across borders and things. And they're both very determined people. They married, had me in Germany. So Deutsch ist meine Muttersprache. I was speaking German before. Born in a British military hospital in Germany, but we moved to London. And my parents worked hard, and they basically believed that anything was possible, and their own lives clearly demonstrated that anything could be possible. And then I was a beneficiary of very positive educational policies in Britain in the 1950s and 60s, really high quality secondary schooling, free university, no tuition fees, a maintenance grant that was sufficiently large that I actually was able to save money while studying. And in the course of that, I was very lucky. I was in the first secondary school in Britain that acquired a modern digital computer. That would be in 1964. It arrived without any software, which dismayed the teachers a little bit, but I started writing programming languages and got it to work, and I found that very, very engaging. Enjoyed that greatly, and then went off and studied mathematics and experimental psychology, and then did a doctorate applying machine learning to teaching. So I had good. That was all very enjoyable. Spent time in Texas, time in Northern California, at Xerox, where quite a lot of the good computer things were invented that we were familiar with nowadays. And that was good. It was a researcher in Edinburgh. And then spent 19 years at the British Open University. And British Open University, very inspiring, open to people, places, methods and ideas, no selection criteria for coming in, entirely distanced teaching university. In its foundation, it was essentially a television and correspondence text university. But while I was there, I helped it get into computing. So by the mid-1980s, we had a home computing policy, and we were getting the students to use computing. And that was very, very satisfying indeed to work for the Open University, because I have a very strong commitment to access. So a university which had no entrance requirements, but very high quality student support was good. And then I was headhunted to run Birkbeck, which is a university part of the Federal University of London system, which again was for part-time learners, very much access driven, and some very advanced computer science. And then, to my surprise, I was asked to go back to Edinburgh in 2002 to be the big boss, as the Russians would say. So I was big boss of a small university at Birkbeck, and and then became big boss of a very big university, and that was very interesting, very, very enjoyable time. And one of the reasons, I mean, one of the reasons Edinburgh chose me was because they wanted to really improve their position on access. And I was an experienced higher education leader, but I had also worked all my career as the head of Birkbeck, an access institution, and I had been the pro-vice chancellor of the Open University, again, a very access. So Edinburgh wanted that orientation. It wanted to change its intake. So I did that.
I think, staying for a second on Edinburgh, you pretty much, you were the visionary who took the university to make it as one of the world's best universities and being diverse and open. Can you tell us about what you did there and the milestones there, and actually what brought this growth and the internationalization of the university?
Okay. So when I arrived, I sort of looked at the position of Edinburgh, looked at where it was recruiting students and staff, and I particularly looked at the students, and I went to talk to the First Minister of Scotland, Jack McConnell, who was like the Prime Minister, and I asked him how would he feel if the University of Edinburgh became 50% international. And Scottish politicians are really very progressive, open-minded people, and he just said to me, "Go for it, Tim."
Really?
And I didn't want to scare my colleagues too much, so I had it as a secret objective, which we achieved. So we started working very hard to recruit international students, and at the same time, I insisted on all job appointments for professors and such. We always looked for an international field. I wouldn't allow them just to interview from Scotland or only from Britain. There had to be an international field. And so we had to look around to find who the best person in the world was. And because I wanted a very, very strong international flavour, I also applied this to the non-academic. I mean, University of Edinburgh is big, about 15,000 staff, 40,000 students. And I said that, okay, so if we were recruiting a technician or a secretary, well, if we can get somebody who is not a British citizen, that would be a plus. And that annoyed some people, but it worked. So the university became very international, and that fed on itself. Then people started noticing. They started saying, "Oh, this is a very international university. I would like to go to one." So we became. So that was a real. It was pleasing. There was some. There were some elements of Scottish or British society who didn't approve. They thought, "Oh, this is a distinguished university, and we want our children to go there." And now there's this lunatic who's recruiting people from all over the world. And, what's the good of that? But it was very clear to me what the good of it was. It meant that the quality of the teaching and the research went up, and like University of the People, had a very, very strong emphasis on scholarships and fundraising, and not just people from Britain, but from people around the world. Yeah.
It's fascinating because we are global, but we are online. So we have students from 200 countries, and we have people who volunteer and work with us from all over the world, and we have offices in different continents. But we are virtual, so it's easy. I mean, to create an international university in a physical place, that's a different challenge. Actually, much harder than our challenge from that.
It is a challenge, and there are issues of particularly there are issues of visas and work permits, and you have to be really, really quite determined to overcome those. But I also, obviously, I took Edinburgh into the online world. By the time I left, we had 80 online postgraduate courses. We had 40 very successful, free, massive open online courses, and increasingly moved into a hybrid. So, so a student would stay and they would be studying some aspect of medicine, but they would stay in Tanzania or Uganda for the first 2 years studying online, and then they would come to Edinburgh for the last year.
So actually moving to online and to computer science, you were the first person in the country to get a computer science A level, which I think is quite an achievement.
Yeah.
But how did your interest in computers started, and how did it affect your life later on? You start talking about it, but I think it's fascinating. So if you can elaborate a bit more.
So my German grandfather gave me, when I was maybe 12, as a present, a tape recorder. And I was fascinated by the tape recorder, and I would show it to people. I was younger than 12, and I would say to them, "This is a machine, but it's not like a bicycle. This is a machine with a memory." And so for me, I was sort of computer ready because I'd thought a lot about this tape recorder, and it was a machine with a memory. And then this very good school teacher, to start with, he got bits of old computers that people were throwing out, and we started just fixing them and making them do things. And then, because it looked exciting, the local education authority decided to pay for a computer. And I was particularly fascinated by the idea of machine learning. And so they invented this new syllabus, computer science syllabus, which had a project in it. And the project I did was to write a computer program that would learn to find its way through mazes. So the program would find its way through a maze, but then the next time it would try and find its way through a different maze, it would be a bit better at doing that. So and I didn't know about the academic world then, because I could have published it, but I didn't know that was something you did with things like that. And that got me then interested in the machine intelligence and artificial intelligence literature. And obviously in artificial intelligence, one of the fundamentals of machine learning. If your intelligent program can't learn, it really isn't intelligent. And it's a definition of intelligence. So I got very absorbed in that. And then got interested in the question, how could computers be used to support learning? So for my doctorate, I wrote a computer program to teach people some algebra, how to solve quadratic equations, but it also learned to improve its teaching behavior. So we'd try out different examples, different routes, do small sample statistics. So by the time, after it had taught 50 people, children, quadratic equations, it was a better teacher of quadratic equations than before. So and that meant that before I went into management, and my career has essentially been half 50% honest scientist, and then 50% Machiavellian manager. But for that first 50%, I was very interested in these issues of getting computers and getting the support learning.
And you were one of the first people, one of the few first that supported online and believed in online. Why, and where do you think it's going?
Okay, well, I mean, online makes it possible. It fits this, the open to people places. If you do stuff online, you can be remote. You could be a prisoner. You could be in a refugee camp. You could be a single parent who can't leave the home, or somebody with special needs in a wheelchair. So online is very important for access. It's also important for breaking space and time. If you're online, you can watch the Big Bang. Big Bang takes millions of years, but you can simulate the Big Bang. Or alternatively, you can go into a subatomic explosion, which takes a few fractions of a second, and you can make it happen more slowly and watch what is going on. So it gives there are things you can do online which are not physically possible in the real world. And you can be in different places at the same time, connected to people. and you can establish. A very successful, interesting person called Roxanne Hiltz came up with the virtual classroom. And I guess one of the surprises in online learning, which really comes from the 1990s, was being able to support virtual communities of students, and for the students to not only interact with their tutor and with the software online, but to interact with a cohort of other students. And that is exciting, that you can do that and establish a cohort. So there are very important things you can do online. You just can't do any other way. I mean, if you're dealing with computer simulations and things, or if you are, I mean, a nice example from Edinburgh would be the chemistry students. They set up an experiment. It's a long experiment. So then they go to with a computer control experiment, they go to their different halls of residence. They have their dinner. They then all log in and they form as a group, and they discuss what is happening in the experiment. But they're not in the laboratory. They're in their study bedroom, and they're not in the same study bedroom. But there they are. They're a group of people discussing an experiment that is happening somewhere. So there is a tremendous potentialities there.
It's interesting because I just saw that the latest survey of students who experienced online learning following the pandemic, actually the majority of them say that they will continue taking courses online, because for some it's like totally disaster, but for the majority it's a great thing, and they like it. And so are the employers as well, saying that they prefer students with online experience.
That's right.
Where do you think we're heading from this perspective in terms of online learning, how universities are going to look in the future?
I think the great majority of universities will offer a hybrid provision. So there will be a few, like University of the People or Open University, where all the students are at a distance. I think what will happen in the majority is there will be a mix, and some of it will be still the conventional seminar in the same room, or the conventional lecture with the lecturer showing off and so on. But an increasing proportion of it will be online, and that will be, I think, very beneficial. I mean, it'll change the dynamics of the university campus, obviously. But I think a university that doesn't go that route, will have to have, extraordinarily high brand values, and be offering something, So it's sort of conceivable that somewhere like Caltech or MIT, except because MIT has masses of stuff that is online, it's conceivable that a small, very high status university like Caltech or MIT could not participate. But it's certainly not conceivable that an ordinary sized university would. I mean, I think they will all do it to various degrees of competence, and I think a hybrid mode, will be normal. And I think one of the other pluses of it is that it means that lifelong learning will become routine. So you study for your professional qualification in engineering or veterinary science or accountancy or whatever, but the field moves on, and you continue as a vet, looking at new ways of curing puppies, or accountants, new ways of dealing with the tax authorities, or whatever the subject is. So I think another development will be that, particularly if the provision is good. I mean, Edinburgh, if you are a veterinary student at Edinburgh, you get a complete electronic record of everything you did in your 5-year study, which means that when you're then out there qualified and you see a puppy with a funny paw, you can say, oh, that looks like the paw I saw in my 2nd year. Let me go back into my electronic records and look. I better have a refresher course, because there are these new ways of treating puppies that were not available when I was a student. So I think it'll change, and I think lifelong learning is just a real plus.
Yeah, I'm totally with you on that. I would also add the cost, because online can be way cheaper than traditional, and a way to reduce costs of higher education is going online. And if you do hybrid, overall, you can reduce somewhat the cost of higher education, which is becoming a bigger and bigger issue worldwide. So not only in the US. Yeah.
See, and that's for, I mean, Edinburgh has a tradition of particularly engaging with Africa, particularly in areas like medicine. So a student in Macquarie, to find the resources to spend a few years in Edinburgh is very, very difficult. But for a student in Macquarie to, with a bit of scholarship, help study online and come to Edinburgh for 3 months, that's fine. That works.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So I think it's quite clear from the discussion, but I'll ask it anyway. What inspires you about UoPeople and about UoPeople's mission, and why you decided to become to get involved and to become a member of our President's Council?
Well, what is inspiring is access. I think, the institution that I ran in London was founded by George Birkbeck, and his slogan was universal access to the blessings of knowledge. And for me, I believe, and Dewey, so the American education, as John Dewey wrote, a society is democratic to the extent that there is universal participation in education. So for me, it is an absolute core. And what is obviously particularly inspiring about the University of the People is supporting those in the most adverse conditions. And because my mother was a refugee and because my father was an impoverished economic migrant, then it seems to me really natural that you want to do access, but you particularly want to do access for people who are in adverse situations.
And, as the Vice Chancellor of Edinburgh, you were in charge of signing the agreement with UoPeople, whereas our students who are refugees in the UK can apply to continue their studies in Edinburgh, and actually the first students is on the way there. So thank you for doing it. Yeah, we are he's a refugee from the Democratic Republic of Congo, and he's just
very good
on his way. So we are very proud of it, and I'm sure that you are as well. So just to end this great conversation, what advice can you give our students?
I would give three pieces of advice. I mean, distance learning is demanding. So one piece of advice is persistence. Things will not always be easy. They're not easy. This is true for everybody. So you have to persist. You have to try, and you have to try again. The second piece of advice I would give is ask for help. If you're stuck or puzzled, University of the People and everybody else wants you to succeed. And once you've got something the size of the University of the People, any sort of puzzle you have about what you're studying or the demands, they will not be strange. They will be familiar. The other people will have had those challenges. Other people will have overcome them. So the second bit of advice I would give would be always ask for help. Don't just sit there thinking this is very difficult, but I don't want people to think I'm stupid or something. You should always ask for help. And the third bit of advice is just to be really ambitious, to just look at what is on offer and don't back away from it because maybe that's a bit difficult or maybe that will take a bit of time. You obviously, you go for something that you find motivating, but don't be put off by what the surroundings look like of it. Just be as ambitious as you can.
That was great. Thank you so much. And it was a great conversation. And for our viewers, if you like this great conversation as much as I enjoyed it, please like this video and please subscribe to our channel. So thank you again, and
the pleasure
to be continued. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.